Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
I am an artist living in beautiful Vermont, USA, and I have a lot of questions. So I engage the minds of the people that I meet. Poets, writers, artists. I explore what's inside and share it with you. My name is Ricky McGeckran, and I am eager to know.
The theater world is colorful, diverse, and interesting. Not having personal experience in this area, I have lots of questions. Our guest today lives in the world of theater with experience in acting, script writing, directing, and more. At the time of this conversation, he was developing his play, In Kern's Eyes, performing April 2023 at Main Street Arts in Saxtons River, Vermont. I am pleased to share my conversation with Sean Rohberon. I'm here with Sean Rohberon, who is an overall theater guy, actor, director, writer. You kind of do everything in theater.
Yep, singer, everything.
Oh, singer! I didn't know that.
Just not much of a dancer. That's about it.
Okay.
I'm not a triple threat.
What about costumes? Are you involved in? Is that something you do there?
Concept, but not the practical.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't sew very well.
All right. Well, I want to talk to you about your experience in theater, and then ultimately I want to talk about why theater would be important to anyone that's listening to this podcast. So let's start with you telling me how you got into theater. I know that we've talked about this, and you mentioned that you got kind of activated around theater in high school, and I know that you were in sports, and so tell me about how that all happened.
Yeah, in 8th grade, I started doing football for the first time, and I got into it. I'd always kind of been doing some sports in school, and then saw a play in 8th grade by a theater group that was in the high school, and thought it was really cool, told my mother about it, who then said, okay, go and do that. Go try that out. Try out for the next one. So I showed up to the next auditions. They were doing The Crucible, tried out, got the part of John Proctor, and thought that was wonderful, started doing it, and then ended up leaving sports because, coach screaming in my face about the fact that I was cutting my time between theater and sports, and I was just like, this is not worth it.
Yeah.
And so I just left and just kept doing theater.
When you were in 8th grade and you saw, what was the performance that they were doing that you saw that got you interested? Do you remember?
No.
Okay.
I
Do you
don't.
remember what it was? Like, what was it that you felt that was interesting? I assume you were experiencing something that you had never experienced before.
Right.
What was that?
I think the experience was seeing the accessibility of it, for one thing. I guess I always thought of theater outside of school, somewhere else, having to go and do that. But the fact that it was happening right there during the school assembly thing for this play really made me think, like, well, this is something that I could just, after school, stay for and take part in. And it looked like something that a lot of people were enjoying together.
Yep.
Like the actors and everybody on stage seemed to be part of this community. And I just thought, well, I would really like a community. And so when I auditioned and got the part, and then that's where I found some really great friends.
So it was a sense of community.
Oh, yeah.
This reminds me, when so the town that I grew up in, we had a middle school that was like 5 through 8, and then we had the high school that was 9 through 12. And our high school would put on at least one theater production a year. And when I was in middle school, we would do a field trip to the high school to see the dress rehearsal. And it was very exciting, and I would always look forward to it every year. And I couldn't wait to get to high school because I wanted to be part of theater. But that never happened for some reason. I'm not really sure why I didn't become part of theater. But I kind of can relate to that. It was and it was the sense of community that I could tell. I had seen older teenagers, older kids, in my neighborhood or what have you, but the dynamic that I was witnessing was very appealing and very interesting. So I can completely relate to that. Now I know that you do. Let's talk about you as being an actor. Tell me about that experience, and why that aspect of it. What about it you like?
Oh, that's all the emotional experience that you get to have when you're on stage. I'm not a method actor in the sense where you try to, if I'm supposed to be an astronaut, I'm going to go live in a metal can for some number of months in order to get into the headspace of being an astronaut. But it's all about the imagination for me. But when I'm on stage, when I'm doing a play, I try to think of the what if and experience what the character is experiencing, and think about the past as well. Like try to, because everybody, when we react to things, it's all based upon past experiences. And so when I'm being a character, I'm always reacting to you, but it's based on something that's in my head, but it's my character's thoughts of like how I feel about you based on something from the past. So that's where I usually try to put my headspace, and I love the emotional experience with the other actors and being able to do things and feel things and go through things that normally you don't in real life. You're often told, be placid, be calm, everybody stay relaxed, nobody go off the rails. But in theater, those are the things that people want to see when they come and see a play. They want to see things that normally are not happening in real life, in their day-to-day life. And it's wonderful to be able to go through that yourself.
Did someone teach you how to act, in that you have to think about someone's past? Is that someone that is taught to an actor, or is that something you figured out?
A little bit of both. Like when I was in high school, I was taught about different styles of acting, but it wasn't until a little bit later when I look up YouTube videos, go on Google and search, that I found all the different acting teachers that I really could connect to, and that's where I'm now at, where I say Sanford Meisner is like my main go-to when it comes to how to act, and then Bertolt Brecht is my go-to when it comes to caring about the message that I'm trying to push inside of the story. And so it was a little compilation of both being taught by other directors about how to act, how to connect into things, but then also just doing my own research and spending my own time on it.
Now, the idea of going into a character, it reminds me, that just sounds really interesting, and it sounds like an experience that most people don't get to have. So I don't know if there's a question there.
Oh, but yeah, I can tell you an experience.
That just sounds, yeah, go ahead.
When I did Jesus Christ Superstar over in the Bellows Falls Opera House in town here, I really got into that one. Every single night that we performed, I would create a secret, which is an important part from my point of view of being an actor, is having a secret that nobody else in the show knows. So then that way, when you're interacting with them, each time you rehearse, each time you perform, that secret inspires how you react to things without anybody else having to be connected to that. And then that ends up being something that people see, but they don't know why you're doing what you're doing, but they see it, and now
meaning the other actors.
Yeah, the other actors. Now they can question that, but like they have to think about it from their character's point of view. Like, why is this person? So during the shows for Jesus Christ Superstar, I would, like one night, I was really sad about having to sacrifice myself. Like I knew it was coming. And before the show began, I walked around and I gave everybody a hug. Like and people were kind of like, oh, hi, Sean. And I would just like come up, hug them. And they didn't know why I was going through this. And then that night, before the show even began, I just sat on the stage for about 10 minutes before anybody else really got there, while it was still in the dark. And I looked at this cross that was set up there, and I ended up crying a little bit because I was thinking about the sacrifice, thinking about dying, thinking about how it had to happen and how it was necessary. And so like I was thinking about that about myself, and then like I cried a little bit before the show began, and then the show began, and then that really affected my performance that night and how I interacted with everybody. But then on another night, I was angry at everybody. So like a lot of the plays, I'm reaching out, taking people's hands. But that night when I was angry with people for the sacrifice I had to give them, I would sometimes not even touch them. And
so this is the beauty
yeah.
of live theater.
Oh, yeah.
Is that you're getting something different every night.
Yes.
And the beauty of performing in live theater is it's a different experience every
Yes.
night. I mean, I don't have an experience in like film or anything, but from what you're saying, you have to recreate it every night. Now, is it ever, all of these emotions that you're experiencing on stage, is it something that you leave on stage? Or do you leave the stage feeling sad or feeling angry? Can you compartmentalize this? I remember one time I saw this interview with Angela Lansbury, and someone interviewed her about, I don't remember the performance, but it was a performance that was extremely emotional, and they were talking about like, how do you go home after that? And she's like, I'm a pro. She's like, I do it every night, and at the end of it, because I'm a professional, I'm able to, I don't know what the word she used, compartmentalize or what have you. So what about you?
There's an exhaustion that can come with it just because of going through the turmoil that a character can go through or the physical exertion that happens. But when it comes to character traits, like making their way over into your day-to-day life, like with method actors, which I'm not a method actor. I don't particularly like method acting. I don't think actors need to suffer in order to get into a character like that, like to truly suffer as themselves. So for me, sometimes my interactions with people backstage or while I'm at rehearsal with them will be like the way my character would interact with their character. And so sometimes people might connect that as if I'm bringing my character stuff into my real life. But if I'm not at rehearsal, if I'm not putting on the show, then those things aren't there. But because I'm often only...
What's your hand?
Yep. I'm often only with those actors when I'm at rehearsal or when I'm at the show. I've had people be a little concerned that, like, I think Sean hates me.
Okay.
Because my character hated their character, and so, like, I had a child think that I despised them, and it was only a couple years after the show that they found out, no, Sean doesn't hate you. He was just, like, acting. He was just doing his thing, and everything's okay. And so she was able to come back and be involved in stuff that I was doing because she was like, oh, it's just acting.
Yeah. Do you think that, and this is something we haven't talked about, because I know people that do art therapy, is that something that you have ever talked about to people about using acting as a way of healing, dealing, processing?
Yes, I think that's one of the main reasons why I do theater.
Okay.
As a director.
As a director, meaning
Yeah.
to help people.
Right.
Oh, so let's talk about being a director. What is the role of there's the producer, there's the writer. What does the director, at the highest, simplest level, what does the director do?
The highest, simplest level of a director, and it's like, directors will hate me for saying this, but you're a glorified audience member.
Okay.
Your job is to sit there each rehearsal, each show, look at what the actors are doing, and then say whether you liked it or not.
Okay.
Like, that's really what it comes down to. Because yes, you're there to tell the actors, oh, you can improve your acting this way. Here's some acting teachers. Here's techniques. Here's thoughts that you could have. Here's questions that I have about your character that you can now answer, and that'll make you think about something to make choices. But in the end, you're an audience member that's getting to sit there every rehearsal, watch their show, and then give your subjective opinion as to what you thought was good, bad, or what was real versus not real.
And people will modify
Yeah.
aspects in order to suit you, so
Yes.
to speak. Okay. Now, how does this work with, if you have a play that was written by, a playwright that's alive and you're putting it on for the first time, are they involved in how you direct it, or do they just give you the script and it's up to you to decide creatively how the audience should receive it?
That's depends on
Okay.
the script. Like if we're talking The Crucible,
Yep.
for instance, I won't be doing that play again until it enters the public domain. And the reason why is because I've done it a couple times already, and from now on, the show is the exact same way every time because of the requirements that the Arthur Miller family, which it owns the rights to The Crucible, require you to perform it.
Oh, so it's not just the script. It's actually
yeah.
other. Oh, okay.
Like
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they won't allow you to switch the time period because even though The Crucible was written based on his experience in the 1950s during the Red Scare, you can't set it during the Red Scare. Like, nope, it's to be set during colonial America.
Okay.
With all these people and they're going through those experiences. You can't tamper with that. You can't tamper with the gender. You can't tamper with really any aspect of the show. You have to try to perform it in its entirety as written.
And what is that like as a director? Is that a good experience, or is it just it's a different experience than obviously when you have creative influence?
Yeah.
Is it okay for you to do that?
It depends.
Okay.
Once again, with The Crucible, I've done it so many times now that if I were to just keep doing it, I would feel like I'm just beating a dead horse. I'm just without any ability to make modifications to the script in any way whatsoever. You're just doing the same show over and over again.
Yeah.
New actors, and you can modify the set to have the chair over here instead of over there, but with a script like that, it's pretty strict in what they require you to stay true to in every aspect of it. And I will wait until it's in the public domain now, so I've got like 30 years or something.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll keep an eye on you.
Right? But other writers are not as strict, and so it really depends on the company you're getting the scripts from, or if you have communication with the owners of it who can then give you those rights. You can request it, so it really depends.
Now, when you're a director, you're working with a team of actors, which means you have different. I've never worked with actors, so I'm assuming that there's different skill levels, skill types. People are good at different things, so you have to be really good with people as opposed to just a creative person.
Yes, and there's many different ways to direct, and some are more. All right, actors, do the things exactly the way that I described them and become like a machine where everybody fits into their cog and you've really micromanaged it in order to make sure that everything flows super smooth. Or there's directors that are very laissez-faire about it and want to make sure that the experience is easygoing or comfortable for the people involved, and so you work with them on growing individually as you're trying to piece together each individual's parts as you see them come to life.
Okay.
And so it just depends on the director.
Makes sense. Sounds like similar to many other types of projects that you would be managing. Now, when you look at the arc of, you're initiating a play, and then there's the opening night. Is the opening night the big moment, or is it the big moment? Is it enjoyable the whole time? Can you tell me about the interest, enjoyability, the emotional experience as a director throughout that whole arc?
Yeah, the experience for me as a director, the entire experience really matters to me. I've joked around with people before, like people who know me know that I really like to watch others and see their reactions to things. I really enjoy seeing how people feel and react to things. And one of my favorite moments in a play is actually during the cast party when the show's over. It's all done. The stress is, it's gone. And the actors are just sitting around eating food, hanging out together. I like to just find a corner to perch myself in and just bask in them.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's one of the
shining moments for me.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you get to see them in that moment of community because they're no longer, you're not concerned about any of the actors being egotistical with one another. Nobody's trying to be superior to anybody else in the troupe because the show's over. There's nothing to compete in anymore. Auditions are done. The roles are set, all that type of stuff. And so people are just happy that they succeeded in what they created, like together. And that togetherness is my favorite part of the show.
That sounds like a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
When you are, I know that you are currently working on a show that you wrote. Have you done that before, or is this the first? You've done that before.
Yeah,
so tell
twice.
me about the experience of seeing something that was just created in your brain being performed. What is that like?
Yeah, it's crazy because even the play was written based on a song that I heard. And so it was a song that I heard from the movie The Fountain, which then inspired the ending scene, which then made me write in reverse the play. Like I kept thinking what happened that led to the currently in my brain scene. And when I finally got to perform it with a group of children, like a group of middle school and high school kids, we performed it, and it was really nice to see that experience happen. And then I rewrote it again with some more characters involved, a little bit more depth to it, and then performed that in 2016 at the Claremont Opera House, and that was great. Each time that it's happened, it feels like, well, this is one step closer to what I had in mind. And then during the pandemic, I wrote it in a book format, like just wrote it all out, and then rewrote the play based on the book. So it's the most in-depth it's been. It's very, I feel like it's done. Like that the play is not going to need to be rewritten anymore. There'll be edits to formatting and things like that, but the actual story itself is where I want it to be. And I am thrilled to be able to finally make this happen with the cast that we have.
As a creative person, that sounds like a wonderful, I mean, I'm a painter, so it's just me. And when I have something in my head and I'm able to get it on a canvas, obviously that is thrilling, and having people connect with it. But something where it is a performance on stage with music and costumes, that sounds like that must be a very creatively fulfilling experience. Let's talk about how we think that theater can help anyone. One of the things that you mentioned was, acting is something, we talked about art therapy, something like that. Community theater is, I assume, in most communities, so people potentially would have access to it. What other ways would people being part of community theater or theater be helpful? Other than, not just acting, there's other things you can do.
When it comes to being helpful for an individual, if you're trying to figure out who you are, theater is a wonderful way for you to experience other people's lives in order to then learn from them yourself and say, oh, I care about this now, or I do feel a little bit like this, or wait, I hated that. And so you get to learn about yourself through the experiences that these characters
But do you think anyone can do that, or do you think you have to be a certain type of person?
I think anybody can, because even if you're not like me, where you try to think from your character's point of view, even if you're just doing it on more of a surface level of creating a mask that you then perform with, which is totally valid, you still have to think about this information. If you don't even think about it emotionally, you have to think about what these characters go through that lead to where they are now. And so even if you're thinking about it completely just logically, there's information that you have to consider, and those can still be lessons for you.
Yeah. This sounds like, well, it's making me want to try acting. I haven't acted since in my fourth grade play when I was Scrooge at A Christmas Carol. But this makes me want to try acting. And it also, in the world where people are so looking at their phones and social media, we have all this stuff, this sounds like a great opportunity for people to get out of that and get into something real, even though it's not real. But you know what I mean? It sounds like a wonderful opportunity for anyone.
Even techies.
Yeah.
People who are too shy to get on stage understand if you tell a director that you know how to hit a nail with a hammer, you know how to use a screw gun, you know how to sew, you know how to work with computers or projectors, any of those types of things, you know how to work with makeup, they will latch onto you.
Yeah.
And you are now like a unicorn to them, like a magical creature,
Right.
because techies are the bread and butter of a show. Actors, they're everywhere. There's always someone who wants to be a star. But techies are those people that you cherish because they're coming out there with no hope to have a spotlight on them,
Okay.
because they're the one manning the spotlight.
Okay.
They're the only reason why those actors get to have their glory of a moment. And so if you're a techie, if you're someone who knows how to do technical work of any kind, or even someone who has the desire to do the technical work, someone will teach you, and you will be valued in your abilities that you want to bring to the table.
And this goes back to what we originally talked about, both of our experience when we were in 8th grade, is this sense of community that we observed. And that's exactly what you're describing. Whether you're an actor, a techie, whether you're costumes, it sounds like a wonderful opportunity to grow and a sense of community. Sean, thank you so much. This was great. You and I we work together at Main Street Arts a little bit, so we talk all the time about stuff. But this was wonderful to have you here, and I appreciate you putting up with all of my questions.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
My name is Ricky McGuckran, and you have been listening to Eager to Know, the podcast. If you haven't already, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join me next week for another Eager to Know podcast.